You ever notice the quiet after someone leaves? The stillness that settles in the corners of a room, like dust coating everything, like time pausing just to watch you. That quiet is not absence. It is not emptiness. It is a mirror. And in that mirror, you see yourself. Why do you pull away when warmth comes close? Why does a hand offered, a gaze steady, a voice soft, make your chest tighten? Why does love feel like fire and yet somehow danger? Have you asked yourself this? Have you dared to ask yourself this in the silence of your own room, with the night pressing against the window and the shadows bending close? Listening, you tell yourself it is timing, circumstance, that the world is not ready for the depth you carry. But timing and circumstance are illusions. The truth is sharper. It bites. The truth is not outside. The truth is here, in your chest, in your mind, in the small, shivering moments when your heart wants to reach and your mind whispers, no, not yet. Look closer. Watch yourself when someone tries to step near. You smile, nod, even laugh, and yet you retreat. Your feet shuffle backward, while your eyes pretend curiosity. You step into light while hiding in shadows. You are a contradiction, a duality, a creature split between desire and fear. You want closeness, and yet you cannot stay. You want to be known, and yet you fear what it will cost you. We carry ghosts, old betrayals, moments when trust shattered, words that cut deeper than knives, moments of exposure that left us raw, trembling, wishing for escape. And we learn. We learned quickly. We learn that closeness can burn, that intimacy can wound, that love, when mishandled, becomes a crucible that leaves scars invisible but permanent. And so you build walls, walls of thought, of habit, of ritual, walls made of polite distance, of careful avoidance, of scheduled solitude. You tell yourself these walls are freedom. You tell yourself that in the safety of your retreat, you are sovereign. But freedom is not retreat. Freedom is not the absence of connection. Freedom is not the avoidance of touch. Freedom is presence, and you have learned to mistake absence for presence. Do you remember when you first learned to pull away? Perhaps it was a gaze that lingered too long, a word that pierced too deep, a hand held too tightly. Perhaps it was your own heart, untrained, unarmed, unprepared for the magnitude of feeling that came rushing in like a tide, and you step back to survive. Survival becomes habit. A beat becomes pattern. Pattern becomes destiny. There is a hunger inside you. You feel it, even when you pretend not to. Beneath the armor, beneath the protocols, beneath the perfectly rehearsed steps, there is hunger. Not for freedom, not for distance. Hunger for recognition, hunger for touch, hunger for the simple proof that you exist not only in the shadow of yourself, but in the reflection of another's gaze. Hunger for someone to be the echo answering your voice. And yet, you run. You run in small, imperceptible ways. A step back, a pause too long, a silence where warmth should have been. You tell yourself it is wisdom. You tell yourself it is self-protection. You tell yourself that by keeping the world at bay, you are safe. But safety is not peace. Safety is stillness, yes, but stillness does not feed the heart. Stillness does not answer the yearning. Stillness does not satisfy the ache of being seen. You have told yourself stories, stories of freedom, stories of independence, stories that frame your retreat as courage, your avoidance as strength, and perhaps, for moments, you have believed them. But beneath these stories is the quieter, truer story, the one you cannot escape. You are afraid, afraid of being known, afraid of being needed, afraid of being loved too much or too little, afraid that intimacy will reveal the parts of you you cannot forgive. Sit with that fear for a moment. Do not turn away. Feel it. Let it breathe in the spaces between your ribs. Notice how it pulses, steady and insistent. This fear is not your enemy, it is your teacher. It is the signal that something in you has not yet learned how to meet the tide. Something in you is still running, even when your body stays. Something in you is still avoiding the mirror. Look at your hands. They are capable of tenderness. They are capable of holding, of receiving, of giving. And yet, too often, they remain empty. Look at your eyes. They can reflect truth, warmth, clarity, and yet they often avert, glance away, shield themselves from gaze that might pierce too deeply. Look at your heart. See how it flinches at closeness. Notice how, in the moments of potential intimacy, it hesitates, as though holding its breath, waiting for permission it will never give itself. Why? Ask again. Why do you push away what you desire most? Why do you turn from hands that would hold you? Why do you step back when warmth leans in? The question is simple. The answer is labyrinthine. The question touches a nerve you have long avoided. The answer is waiting in silence, waiting in memory, waiting in the places where your defenses are thinnest, waiting in the tender, unclaimed spaces you call your own. Notice your breath. Feel the tension that curls around your chest. Hear the echo of your own heartbeat in the silence. It is telling you something. It is saying, you know, you have always known. You know the cycle you repeat. You know the walls you build. You know the hunger you disguise. You know the fear you name something else. You know the quiet truth that you run not from them, but from yourself. In the stillness, you feel it stir, a flicker, a recognition, a tiny pulse of honesty that slips past the defenses. You are afraid, yes, afraid of being burned, afraid of being seen, afraid of being needed, afraid of needing, and yet, in that same pulse, there is the faintest shimmer of longing, not for distance, but for connection, not for control, but for surrender, not for safety, but for the unknown warmth that waits beyond your walls. And so begins the journey, not into them, not into the world, but into yourself, into the quiet, trembling spaces of your own awareness, into the truth that has been waiting patiently for you to notice. You will walk it slowly. You will breathe it in, line by line, shadow by shadow. You will meet your fear, your hunger, your hesitation, without judgment. You will see the reflection of all the ways you step back. And for the first time, you may just let yourself stay. Because the question is not, why do they leave? The question is, why do you leave yourself? And in that question lies the door. You thought you were free. You told yourself you were walking a path, unbound, unclaimed, untethered, and for a moment it felt true. The spaces you created were yours. The silences you nurtured were safety. The distance you maintained was power. And yet, every cycle has a pattern. Every path leaves a trace. And so, you find yourself here again, circling the same edges, retreating from the warmth that would meet you, avoiding the hands that would take yours, turning away from the gaze that seeks to hold yours. You see it first in small ways. A conversation ends, and you retreat into yourself. A text remains unanswered, and you feel a curious relief, a subtle sigh that tells you you have maintained control. You step into the world of possibility, and yet you stay just outside it. A door half open is enough. The light spills in, but you do not enter. You watch, you observe, you measure, and slowly the world becomes a gallery of mirrors, each reflecting your own avoidance back at you. There is a hunger in these mirrors, not for freedom, not for escape, but for recognition, for connection, for the kind of intimacy that is terrifying in its potential to fracture you, but irresistible in its promise to reveal your own reflection fully, without distortion. You do not know how to meet it, you have forgotten how. And so you step back. You step back and again, tracing the invisible lines of retreat that have become your rhythm. You are a creature of memory. Each pain, each disappointment, each slight, each heartbreak has etched itself into your nervous system. It speaks in quiet insistence every time warmth approaches. Your body remembers, your heart remembers, your mind remembers. And so, long before the danger even appears, your defenses are in place. Your walls are rebuilt, your distance rehearsed. The cycle is ancient, eternal, invisible, and yet it shapes every breath you take. We are drawn to what scares us. We are drawn to the very thing that will teach us the deepest lessons. And you are drawn to connection, yes. Drawn to being seen, held, understood. And yet each approach, each touch, each tender word triggers the old echoes. The fear of loss, the fear of betrayal, the fear of exposure. And so you push away before the world can push you. You take the power in your own hands. You erect the walls. You create the empty spaces where safety resides. And within those spaces, there is a peculiar, bitter satisfaction. You are untouchable. You are sovereign. And yet, you ache. You thought you wanted freedom. What you wanted was control. Freedom is not the absence of hands to hold you. Freedom is not the lack of touch. Freedom is the ability to remain present while being vulnerable. But you do not trust that. You do not trust the vulnerability because you have seen how easily it can be shattered. You have learned the sharpness of absence, the suddenness of betrayal, the quiet devastation of being left behind. And so the cycle continues. Observe it closely. Watch yourself when love approaches. You smile, you nod, you lean in for a moment, and then you step back. You laugh, and your eyes flinch. You open your mouth to speak, and the words retreat before they leave. You are like a wave reaching for the shore, only to pull back again, time after time, leaving foam and echoes behind. Each movement is graceful, each retreat is deliberate. Each withdrawal is a testament to the lessons you have learned, the protections you have earned, and yet it is lonely. Not the kind of loneliness that can be cured with distractions or achievements. It is the deep, aching loneliness that whispers in the quiet hours, that sings in your bones, that tells you that the walls you have built are not freedom, they are chains. Chains of your own making, chains forged from fear, memory, anticipation, and self-preservation. Chains that glint like gold in the dim light, beautiful and lethal all at once. You thought you were wise. You thought you were safe. You thought you had mastered the dance of retreat and approach. But wisdom is not measured in avoidance. Safety is not a matter of distance. Mastery is not control. True understanding is the courage to stay when the world urges you to flee, to remain in the tension between desire and fear, to let the hands that reach for you touch you without recoiling. And here is the truth you resist. You do not push away because you do not want love. You push away because you fear the magnitude of what it would require of you. You fear being seen fully, naked in your own being. You fear that your own shadow will frighten the light away. You fear that intimacy will demand surrender, and surrender is a word you have spent a lifetime mistrusting. Do not mistake avoidance for choice. Do not confuse the meticulous retreats of habit for wisdom. They are not. They are echoes of old pain, still resonant, still shaping the way you move, shaping the way you breathe, shaping the way you allow the world to enter your body. And yet, even in the depth of this cycle, there is a thread of longing. Even in the retreat, your soul whispers toward what it desires most. Recognition, connection, reflection, belonging. We all carry this thread. We all know the paradox. The closer we come to warmth, the more we flinch. The more we desire intimacy, the more we construct distance. The more we long to be seen, the more we hide. It is human, it is old, it is inevitable. And yet, there is a choice embedded within it, subtle and quiet, almost imperceptible, waiting for a moment of courage to emerge. Notice the way your body reacts. Your chest tightens, your stomach knots, your hands hesitate, your voice falters. It is the language of fear and anticipation entwined. It is the body remembering every moment it has been hurt. It is the mind rehearsing every possible escape route. It is the soul whispering, "Wait, not yet. You cannot trust this." And you obey reflexively like a trained response. This cycle repeats itself in every relationship, every flirtation, every touch, every word exchanged. You see it in friends, you see it in lovers, you see it in family, you see it in yourself. The push and the pull, the approach and the retreat, the longing and the hesitation. And you tell yourself it is them, that they are too much, too intense, too unavailable, too whatever. But look closer. It is never them, it is always you. You have learned to anticipate abandonment before it happens. You have built a safety net of distance, preemptively catching yourself from falling. You have mastered the art of avoidance, until avoidance feels like identity. And yet, in the quiet moments, in the spaces no one else occupies, you feel the ache, you feel the hunger, you feel the question, why can I not let this stay? Why do I always step back? And then the realization comes, slow, subtle, like sunlight bleeding over a horizon you have avoided. You see the law beneath the cycle. The pattern is simple, not absence, but fear. Not avoidance, but preemptive self-preservation. Not control over others, but control over yourself. You are guarding not love, but your own sense of being. You are shielding yourself from potential devastation that may never come. And yet, the irony is cruel. By avoiding the very thing that could feed your soul, you prolong the ache. By stepping back, you deny yourself the warmth you crave. By holding the walls high, you trap yourself in silence. You protect and you starve. You flee and you yearn. You control and you ache. Notice the patterns in the world around you. The way people circle each other like dancers. Hesitant, rehearsing, retreating, advancing. The way life offers connection again and again. And yet, instinct urges you to step away. You are not unique in this. We all do this. We all create the spaces between ourselves and what we desire most. We all flinch from intimacy. We all fear surrender. The patterns repeat, relentless and precise. The mind, anticipating hurt, builds walls. The body, remembering pain, retreats. The heart, longing for reflection, hesitates. The soul, craving connection, whispers in the quiet moments. You are safe, and yet not. You are whole, and yet not. You are human. This is the cycle. You approach, you retreat, you desire, you fear, you reach, you withdraw, you long, you hesitate, you ache. And yet, it is not broken, it is not wrong. It is truth. The truth of human fragility, of memory, of protection, of longing. The truth of the ways we push away what we most desire, not out of malice, not out of choice, but out of survival. And here, in this recognition, a subtle awareness emerges. You see the pattern not as judgment, but as mirror, not as flaw, but as law, not as failure, but as human truth. You see yourself as you are, as you have always been, as you may continue to be, until something deeper unfolds. You feel the pull before it even begins. A glance, a word, a gesture, tiny sparks, almost invisible, and yet your body knows, your mind knows, your heart knows. It whispers warnings, rehearses exits, plots distance, measures the risk of being fully seen. And so, long before the warmth arrives, you have built the walls, reinforced the habits, orchestrated your retreat. You are not cruel, you are not uncaring, you are cautious. You are guarding something sacred, yourself. And yet, there is a paradox in the act. In the moment you withdraw, there is relief. A sigh, subtle, almost imperceptible. You tell yourself, I am safe, I am sovereign, I am free. But the relief is thin, brittle, temporary. It never lasts. Because what you have avoided is not the other, not the world, not the unknown. What you have avoided is yourself, the parts that hunger, that ache, that long for reflection, the parts that have grown weary of their own walls. Consider how patterns imprint themselves on the soul. Each moment of retreat leaves a faint trace, a shadow, a memory, a line of dust in an otherwise polished floor. And each time you step back, the trace deepens, becomes recognizable, becomes familiar. Habit forms, routine forms, identity forms, and what was once a survival mechanism becomes a law unto itself. You do not need to think about stepping back anymore. You step back instinctively, reflexively, elegantly, even, and yet elegance does not fill the emptiness. Reflex does not feed the hunger. You have seen this in others. Lovers who flinch, friends who withdraw, family who hold a distance that is almost invisible but unmistakably present. You have recognized it, studied it, perhaps even condemned it, and yet, in your own life, the pattern repeats. You push away. You push away before the world can push you. You retreat before the heat of intimacy can scorch you. You create the spaces between yourself and what you most desire. And when you are alone, in the quiet hours, you feel it. The ache, the longing, the recognition that the pattern is your own. This is not failure. It is law. It is rhythm. It is survival. And yet, in survival, there is irony. The very act that protects you also starves you. The very walls that preserve your heart also isolate it. The very caution that prevents hurt also prevents joy. The very mastery of retreat also preserves the ache. You think you are in control. You think you are sovereign. You think you are free. And yet, in the core of your being, you know the truth. You are bound. Bound by fear, bound by memory, bound by the subtle insistence of the past. Notice how anticipation shapes your every move. Before a word is spoken, before a hand reaches for yours, your body has rehearsed the exit, the mind has measured the risk, the heart has calculated the cost, and the soul, patient, watches it all unfold, waits and whispers. This is the cycle. This is the law. This is what you have learned. This is what you repeat. And you repeat it again and again, again and again. You do not do it consciously. You do it because the self you have known for decades has grown skilled at avoidance. And skill feels like strength until you feel the ache of its cost. You have convinced yourself of wisdom in this. Better to avoid the wound than to risk it, you say. Better to retreat than to fail. Better to be alone than to be hurt. And perhaps, in the surface of things, this is true, but the surface does not tell the whole story. Beneath the surface, beneath the rehearsed motions, beneath the polite smiles and the careful words, lies the ache, the hunger, the quiet despair of a soul that has grown adept at retreat, but has not grown adept at being fully known. We are creatures of paradox. We run from what we most desire. We flee from what would nourish us. We resist what would free us. And yet, in resisting, in fleeing, in pushing away, there is recognition. A recognition of our own fragility, of our own history, of our own need to survive in a world that has not always honored tenderness. And so, the cycle repeats. Approach, desire, hesitate, withdraw, repeat, approach, desire, hesitate, withdraw. An eternal rhythm, like waves against the shore that never stay still, like wind against trees that bend but never break. You see it clearly in yourself now. You observe the subtle tremors, the hesitation before a call, the pause before a word, the recoil before a touch. You witness it in the spaces between your intentions and your actions. And slowly, recognition turns to understanding. Not judgment, not despair. Understanding. You do not push away out of cruelty or choice. You push away because you have learned to protect yourself. Because experience has taught you the sharpness of exposure. Because the body and mind remember, long after the incident has passed, the taste of absence, the echo of abandonment, the suddenness of betrayal. And yet, it is not all fear, not all caution. Somewhere beneath the surface, there is longing, there is desire. There is a thread that pulls you toward connection, toward reflection, toward intimacy. The paradox grows more acute. You want what you fear. You long for what you avoid. You ache for what you push away. And the tension is exquisite, terrifying, achingly beautiful. Because to recognize this thread is to acknowledge your own humanity. To see it is to know that avoidance is not eternal. That patterns, however ancient, can be observed. That cycles, however rigid, can be witnessed and, eventually, transformed. We are all entwined in this dance. The dance of desire and fear. The dance of approach and retreat. The dance of craving and hesitation. It is a human rhythm, timeless, universal, unending. And yet, in observation, there is subtle liberation. In witnessing, there is a kind of freedom. Not the freedom of escape, not the freedom of distance, but the freedom that arises from clarity, from seeing the cycle in motion, from naming the law that governs your retreat, from feeling the pulse of the pattern without being consumed by it. Consider the imagery. Mirrors lining a hallway, each reflecting your own avoidance, each reflecting your own hesitation, each reflecting the hunger that drives you to retreat. Consider the storms that rage inside, invisible to the world, visible only to your own perception. Consider the waves that lap at the shores of your heart, rising and falling, pulling back, surging forward, indifferent to your desire to stand still. Consider the dust of old memories, swirling in the quiet corners, settling in the air you breathe, reminding you of what was lost, what was feared, what was survived. And in this imagery, you see yourself, you see the patterns etched in your flesh, in your posture, in your gaze. You see the rehearsed retreats, the careful pauses, the moments when your body anticipates harm before it exists. You see the hunger, the longing, the ache that is both your curse and your teacher. And slowly, recognition blooms into insight. You begin to perceive the law beneath the surface. Not absence, not avoidance, not distance, but fear, memory, protection, anticipation. A cycle of survival that repeats across time, space, and generations. And yet, in naming it, observing it, tracing it with awareness, something shifts. Not the pattern itself. The pattern is old, resilient, unyielding, but your perception shifts. Your relationship to it shifts. You see it as it is, neither enemy nor master. Simply a law, a rhythm, a current in the river of your being. And as perception deepens, awareness grows. You witness the waves, the mirrors, the storms, the dust, and you remain present. You do not need to flee. You do not need to avoid. You do not need to repair or resist. You simply see, and in seeing, you are fully without retreat.